Welcome everyone. We're really happy to see a full room of people, of experts, of journalists, of activists. So today is of course about discussions. It's also about hearing from you, but we also have a great panel of experts. Now, this event is actually inspired by a BBC documentary called Irresistible, Why We Can't Stop Eating by Dr. Chris van Tilliken. And so what he did is that he looked at big food and how ultra-processed foods, how they make it hyper-palatable, and they use marketing tactics to make them attractive, especially for young children, but even also for us. And this, of course, drives up consumption and increases the risk of obesity and diabetes. Now, of course, this is a bit of an interactive session. So I'm going to start with the tables that have the word bliss point.
What we were thinking is that it's basically the maximum utilization and the point at which someone might feel maximum bliss.
Okay, vanishing caloric density.
It's sort of giving you maximum energy in a sense of calories, but doesn't give you maximum nutrient profile.
We had sonic branding, and we also had the first definition that the gentleman explained there, which is when a product is open, like the opening of a can, you immediately turn around. And what we also noted was that before you even know what it is, you've decided that you want it.
Woohoo! Thank you, everyone. So chew on this for a moment. In South Africa, more than 1.3 million children between the ages of 5 to 9 and over 2.7 million children between the ages of 10 and 19 are predicted to be obese by 2030. Yeah. But talk to us about the role of food marketing and that urgent need for policy reform.
Thank you so much. I think we need to start thinking about this in a way that highlights that we're not dealing with kind, compassionate people when we talk about big food. These people are people who are looking to make a big buck. So these are people who are profit-driven and want us to, and how do they get that profit? They want us to consume and consume and consume more and more of the food. The way that we're eating has changed dramatically, and I think we see it even in the ways that each of us individually are consuming food. We're more likely to pick up things that are easy to cook, to make, things that are already available for us. And that's not by accident, that's by design. We actively, know certain brands. We're bombarded constantly by adverts that we're seeing on television, on our phones, on street lamps, right? So that marketing is intentional. It's a deliberate act by these companies to make sure that these foods are constantly on our mind and that we are in fact attracted to them and we want them. So, when you think about whether or not certain companies advertising a cheap, affordable food, you think, oh, they're doing it because people are hungry. No, I think we can all agree that they're probably doing it to drive their sales and get more and more people buying into that food. So when we talk about, the food environment, often these people are in the background and the marketing part of it isn't spoken about. But I think that's one of the most important aspects of the food space, and it highlights the need to actually regulate that environment.
They really want to learn. So talk to us about your research in particular around ultra-processed food consumption in the country and the very importance of the packaging labeling.
So for us, a really important question was, well, who is consuming ultra-processed foods? Because if we're targeting a type of food that perhaps is only eaten by high-income consumers, then we're not really addressing a problem on the ground. So we did research in low-income communities in South Africa. We included 2,500 participants from Langa and Khayelitsha in Cape Town, urban participants, as well as Mount Frere or now Kwabanka in the Eastern Cape for our rural participants. And what we found was even amongst low-income South Africans, 40% of the diet is ultra-processed. And we also found that those in those communities who ate the most ultra-processed food were at a much higher risk of consuming too much salt and sugar and saturated fat in their diet. And they also consume double the amount of energy in a day compared to the low ultra-processed food consumers. So that really is quite concerning when we think about the health outcomes, because we know that consumption of those unhealthy food components is linked to non-communicable diseases like Suki mentioned diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So that puts them at much greater risk. And that also shows that it really is important to focus on regulations around restricting these unhealthy products, because they do impact the most vulnerable population in the country as well.
Share with us some of the research and the work that you've done around child-directed marketing in South Africa.
Marketing is rampant. I can just specifically speak to 2 studies that we have done, and in the one where we looked at breakfast cereals, and that's over 220 breakfast cereals that's available in South African stores that we have studied. So that's a wide range of breakfast cereals that are bought in many households around South Africa and eaten by children and adults. And we found that more than 95% of them carried some kind of child-directed marketing, whether it is images, cartoon characters. So if a child really wants to eat a specific cereal or product, they're going to pester the parent or possibly cause a scene in the store. And then the parent looks at this item and sees, oh, good for my growth and development of children. So that kind of gives them an incentive to say, it's okay, let me buy this for my child. It's good for them. It's got so many different added vitamins and minerals, those type of health claims, and you buy it. But you find that 95% of those breakfast cereals are high in sugar, yet they're carrying these health claims. If the front of pack warning label had to come into place, none of those products would be able to carry those kind of claims on their packaging.
There are countries that have successfully passed laws on front of package warning labels, such as Brazil, we have Mexico, we have Chile. But if you look at the processes that led to the passing of those laws, there was a lot of resistance from stakeholders such as Big Food. And in those instances, they have used the same strategies, they've used the same arguments. And the result of that was either a delay in the passing of the regulations or the passing of regulations that are weakened than those that had been proposed. And so we are looking essentially at some of the same companies that are operating in these jurisdictions. They are operating in South Africa. And we're expecting that it will be no different in South Africa. They will still raise the same arguments. They will still raise the same strategies. And so part of our research is meant to avoid some of those issues, the same issues such as the delays, the weakening of regulations that have happened in those jurisdictions, and to take those lessons from those jurisdictions to prepare ourselves in pushing the government to pass these regulations.
A big round of applause to our panel. Open it up for some Q&A questions.
The points that you've made have convinced me that the front of package labelling bill should just be introduced. And so my question is, why not? Yolanda, in your comments, you mentioned resistance by the big food industry. And I'm wondering if you could just tell us a bit more about what do they do, given that the government has the authority to put in place any laws they want. How do the big food companies convince them not to do what's good for our health?
So Michelle, they do employ a number of strategies and a number of arguments. So for example, there is questioning the science, obviously, around whether front of packaging warning labels actually work. And there's also arguments around how it might affect the economy and arguments about job losses, for example. But the one that when we came up with the research, when we were thinking about, is how sometimes they will then question the legitimacy of the government to actually pass those laws.
Well, we've heard it now. There's no easy fixes. Obesity is on the rise, and it's been 2 years. So we actually need to see those draft regulations for front of package warning labels become a reality. And all of you can play a role. Sign the petition.